Welcome back to Definitely Not Definitive. I'm Ken.
And I'm Bethany.
And we're just a fun couple in love that loves having some fun with Fallout.
Hell yeah, we do.
And so this is season 1, episode 14 of the Storyteller series, Think Tank's Big MT. So if you want all of our Fallout reactions, check out the description of this video. We got a playlist there for you. We also got a link to our Patreon, get early ad-free access. Are you ready?
No.
Okay.
Because it's Fallout, so we gotta do our Fallout drink. So this is a stim pack spritzer, which of course is not complete without a stim pack. Mm-hmm. So you gotta get the stim pack in there, mix it around a little bit, you know, just because it adds. And then, now we're ready.
Okay.
You've experienced the Fallout series in your own way, but want to learn more about its story. Well, to get to the heart of the story, you have to go back to the beginning.
The dog is man's best friend, and the gun is his other best friend. But what if someday man could experience the love of a loyal hound and the happiness of a warm gun simultaneously?
Awesome.
That day is at hand, thanks to the power of science. America's greatest minds have collaborated on the Fluid Intelligence Dog Ordinance.
Fido.
A miracle of ballistic zoology that combines floppy-eared alertness with the stopping power of a .44 Magnum. Take that, commie spies. Take that, bullies.
Bullies.
Take that, Richie Marcus.
Oh my god.
Well, to be fair, Richie Marcus was always a dick.
The great minds of the 21st century created fantastic technology that their ancestors couldn't even imagine. They shot machines into space, built robots too small to see, and harnessed the power of the atom. They also made all of the horrors that ruined the world, and many of those scientific horrors still plague us today. Forced evolutionary virus, nuclear warheads, orbital weapon platforms. It's chilling to think that the minds who created such things might still be out there. But they are, still thinking up new ways to kill, torture, and mutilate. About 350 years ago, America was celebrating a war that they won by using the first atomic bombs. The whole country was inspired by the potential that atomic energy promised. They dreamed of a future where atomic rocket ships flew through the sky, atomic cars raced through the streets, and giant robots defended America's shores with atomic death rays. At first, that view of the future only appeared in movies, the old two-dimensional holotapes of the 20th century. But by the middle of the 21st century, the future had arrived, and it looked exactly how America thought it would. What had once been science fiction had become science fact. The wasteland holds monuments to some of the people who brought about that future. The Roscoe factory still stands, as does the old Chrysler factory, Poseidon energy reactors, and of course, Vault-Tec vaults. The big boys all built their facilities to last, but some of America's greatest pre-war minds engaged in secret work that was best kept out of the public eye. These masters of the ethical paradigm shift called themselves the Think Tank. This group of eggheads engaged in the sort of radical, theatrical, impossible science that was once the stuff of comic books. They concealed their laboratories deep within a complex called Big Mountain, where their innumerable crimes against humanity and nature were hidden beneath miles of stone. There they constructed facilities to research new ways to fight America's wars. Titanic robot scorpions with laser stingers, cybernetic enhancements for man and beast, new stealth suit technology that was surprisingly talkative for a stealth suit, innovative new toxins to kill foreign soldiers by the thousands. Every day at Big Mountain was like a science fiction double feature. No, a triple feature. Their work wasn't theoretical, it was applied science. Applied with extreme prejudice. Big Mountain maintained its own prison camp, where imprisoned Chinese and Chinese Americans were kept as human test subjects. DNA splicing, automated lobotomy machines, and old-fashioned target practice for newfangled guns were just a few of the indignities forced on the unfortunate prisoners. The exploding collars that modern slavers use were widely used in the camp at Big Mountain. There are even a few of those old prisoners still alive in that camp today, turned into ghouls when the bombs fell 200 years ago, and they have spent the centuries trapped at Big Mountain by their slave collars. A horrid fate, even for suspected commies. When there weren't enough communist prisoners for their experiments, the think tank had no problem using unsuspecting American citizens. They distributed their technologies around the country to military towns like Hopeville. In one instance, they even provided a resort town with fabulous devices like holograms, self-sustaining vending machines, and the most advanced auto docks in the wasteland. But the think tank took its pound of flesh. The experimental technology turned entire cities into proving grounds, often with disastrous results. The sandstorms over the divide are courtesy of the think tank's meddling, as is a peculiar red mist that chokes the life out of anyone who ventures into the wrong part of the wasteland. Most of their attempts to put science to benevolent use ended up going horribly awry. They designed a series of bodysuits to autonomously transport wounded soldiers away from battlefields, but they ended up as ambulatory body bags for the vengeful bones of long-dead men. Even something as harmless as a toaster became a bloodthirsty killing machine once the think tank began experimenting with automated personality modules. Sometime before the Great War, the scientists of the think tank developed a weapon so powerful that it blew the top of their mountain right off.
Damn.
Since then, Big Mountain has been a huge crater that forms a natural barrier between the think tank and the rest of the wasteland. Keeps most folk out,
nice barrier,
and mercifully keeps the think tank inside. The 6 scientists who ran the place back then survived the Great War inside a massive dome at the heart of the Big Empty. Over the years since, everyone else who inhabited the place has met their end either from radiation or more gruesome means, but those 6 scientists were mighty tenacious about continuing their research for as long as possible. As their bodies aged, they decided to preserve their precious brains in new mechanical bodies. Transferring a living brain into a robot body is a tricky task. These men and women survived the process, but it seems like a few chunks of brain got left behind in their old gourds. The resulting monstrosities became demented parodies of their once brilliant selves. The long-term effects of floating in biomed gel hasn't helped them any either. They go by mysterious code names like Dr. Zero, 8, or Klein. Their original names are lost to them, maybe a bit of brain damage during their transformation, or it might be some math nerd's idea of a joke. Klein is some sort of de facto leader, mostly by default, since the others are too incompetent to do much more than break things around their lab, rant about communists, or indulge their remaining biological urges. At some point after they transferred their brains into those floating cases, Klein had a falling out with the Dr. Mobius, and Mobius set up shop in a region of the Big Empty that he calls the Forbidden Zone. From there, he pesters the think tank with an army of robot scorpions. It all sounds silly when you're nice and safe out here in the wasteland, but there are people who've been inside the Big Empty and seen firsthand the nightmares within. Just about all of them ended up captured by robots and had their brains scooped out. Normally, getting its brain pulled out would spell the end for a body, but the automated surgeons in the Big Empty are programmed to cram in a bunch of electronics and a Tesla coil that keep people scurrying around without their brain. The think tank calls them lobotomites.
Oh my god.
They're the brainless workforce, keeping the remains of the glorious Big Empty together. Beyond their janitorial duties, they just shamble around growling and attack anyone they see who still has a skull full of gray matter. An energy barrier around the crater prevents the lobotomites from escaping and keeps the think tank trapped inside too. But any creature that still has its brain inside its body can walk right through that barrier. Many of the evils of the Mojave came out of Big Mountain. Those giant poisonous bugs, the Cazadors, were engineered by one of the crackpots in the think tank. That same fellow thought it would be a bright idea to crossbreed a rattlesnake with a coyote. The resulting abominations escape to plague the Mojave. They slink around the desert at night, preying on the unwary. Many travelers have died with the sound of a night stalker's rattle still echoing around them. There have only been a handful of people who got inside the place and back out with their brains intact. The lure of buried relics from before the war is a powerful temptation for folk who are so enamored of the past that they can't appreciate the wonders that the present holds. The disgraced Brotherhood of Steel elder went there in search of the means to help the Brotherhood defeat the new California Republic. The place was like a bank vault, just waiting for him to crack it open. Elijah's Brotherhood training with the pre-war technology allowed him to easily outmatch the think tank and have the run of the place for a while. He not only found arcane gadgets, but also learned about another hidden treasure trove of pre-war wonders. By the time he broke out of the Big Empty, he had everything he needed to pull off a heist at some legendary city of gold. The think tank is a little eccentric, but they're still dangerous. Elijah was a rare man, an expert in the equipment found around the Big Empty. Others who stumbled across the think tank had a harder time evading them. A man like Elijah drew plenty of attention, and one of the Brotherhood's splinter groups sent out an assassin to stop whatever he was up to. That assassin, she didn't fare as well. Got caught by the think tank, had her brain all poked up by one of their malfunctioning autodocs. She made it out of there eventually, with most of her brain still working.
Oh, damn.
Then she headed off after Elijah again, this time with a better stealth suit and an ever-growing grudge against the man. The only other humans who've set foot in the Big Empty and walked back out, mostly intact, are a pair of couriers. One of them wasn't so much concerned with buried technology as he was with speaking to people who were alive back before the war. The think tank might just be brains in jars now, but they were once red-blooded Americans in the days when great nations stretched all the way over the continent. It's hard to find a person who remembers that firsthand. The think tank had 5 of them in one room. To a man trying to reawaken a nation, that's an opportunity worth braving the lobotomites and robo-scorpions. The other courier seems to have stumbled across the place by accident. No grand quest for knowledge, vengeance, or truth. Just bought a ticket to the midnight show of a sci-fi marathon that went on longer than expected. Even though they are just fragments of their former selves, the think tank used to be some of the greatest minds that humanity had to offer. They brought about achievements in science that prove humanity is the most advanced life form on Earth. But Earth is just one small planet in a vast universe, and we are not alone. We have been visited by a malevolent race from beyond the stars who are as far above us as we are above the amoeba.
It's a story for
For
another day.
centuries, they have observed us from afar with envious eyes. But that is a story for another day.
Oh, he took his time with that one. You really drew that one out. That was cool.
It's kind of like he heard you and he's like, no, you don't get to jump the gun on this. I'm going to have the dramatic effect. I'm going to say it.
Yep, true. So what'd you think?
This really dove into some of the horrors.
Yeah.
Night Stalkers, lobotomites, robo-scorpions. Whew, man.
You know, the ghouls and the super mutants, those were super happy fun times. That was the light part of Fallout.
I know, but like in this one, it's like, oh yeah, you already know those. Like here's some ghouls and some horrific collars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to lobotomites and robo-scorpions. I mean, it was just kind of like, I don't know. This had some fresh terrors for us in this one, and quite a few of them. We talked about it, especially in the last one, which was the old religion, how religion has that light and shadow side. Well, so does science.
Yeah.
And we definitely saw the shadow side.
And you know, it's interesting because like whenever there's a quest for like immortality and like living on forever, there's always like that price that comes with it that like you find in any sort of like medium, like you know, with vampires, obviously, you know, like that sort of trade-off of like, okay, yeah, you get to live forever, but you know, you can only survive at night and you have to feed off people's blood. And now with this, like, you know, the scientists wanted to continue to live on forever, but like they're like kind of like, then they start to go a little bit crazy and like they lose a part of themselves, just being like just a brain inside of a jar, like with like, you know, TV monitors and arms and whatnot. I think that's also true a little bit for, you know, people in general when that's their goal is to live on forever and to like, you know, like make their mark. And I mean, that doesn't always happen, but it makes me think of like Alexander Hamilton. He really wanted to, you know, make something that lives on past him and whatnot. But it's not like, you know, he did some great things, but at like what it cost, like, you know, cost of his family. And, you know, he cared so much about his own legacy that he, went ahead and like, you know, spoke out like plainly about his illicit affair, like in public, to, you know, and so I don't know, it's just interesting. I find that like trying to pursue this immortality always comes at a cost.
Just makes me think of that Indiana Jones and the Lost Grail, when all these guys are going for that thing. If I just take that drink of water, I'll live forever. And I just hear the guy's head, or the words in my head saying, he chose poorly. And that kind of summarizes it. Like, you know, going in pursuit of that is kind of a poor choice for your life, because you're so concerned with what happens after you die that you don't live your life. And it's often the people around you who are suffering. And that's really what life is about, is the connections we make, the people that we get to interact with and spend our brief little moments on this planet with.
Yeah. So do you think the think tank is like, I don't know, the worst that we've seen so far? Because you said that this is like the horrors of it.
Oh, I don't know that it's the worst.
It's not as bad as Caesar's Legion.
Yeah. It's not the worst. It's just kind of, you know, between like the Ulysses storyline and then even the old time religion, like, yeah, there were those creepy religious people who were like, I don't know, drinking blood and doing sacrifice, and they were like into self-mutilation, and like they were way off the deep end. But in like the whole frame of old time religion, they were like, here's this little snapshot and moving on now to something. I mean, it didn't seem quite as dark of an episode in totality as the think tank, which, like, I'm trying to think, like, well, were there any happy, like, or uplifting moments in this episode? And kind of not really. Science can do such wonderful and amazing things that I would assume if you are living in a apocalyptic world, that's going to be one of those things that you turn to and hope that science can get us through it, can fix it, can resolve it for us. I think of us now in the world looking to science to try and resolve climate change, because we're not willing to make the changes as people or give up our comforts and conveniences. So we're looking to science to, well, fix this, make it so that we can have something else that allows us to keep living our lives the way we want to, but also like not murdering the planet would be kind of nice. I just think of how in this instance, science would be one of those places where we would all look to. But if you have some scientists who are more concerned with living forever and making their mark on this post-apocalyptic world, their brain's not in the right place. Physically, literally, as well as metaphorically.
You'll have to let us know what you thought about this down below in the comments. And if you want early ad-free access to all of our Fallout reactions and all of our reactions on Definitely Not Definitive Games, check out the description of this video. We got a link to our Patreon there, as well as a link for a playlist for all of our Fallout reactions here. Thanks so much for checking out our reaction for Fallout Season 1, Episode 14, The Think Tank. But just keep in mind
that our reaction is definitely not definitive.